All right, let's talk about the holy grail of fitness, right? Building muscle while losing fat. It always feels like this impossible choice. You're told you either have to get big and kind of fluffy to gain any real muscle, or you have to starve yourself just to get lean. Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to use a science-backed approach to build the definitive blueprint, the one that lets you do both and do it the smart way. So let's jump in by tackling the biggest question in the gym. So here it is, the big one that drives everyone crazy: bulking versus cutting. Do you really have to pick just one? Do you have to commit to months of feeling like a fat mess just to build muscle? Or feeling weak and hungry all the time just to see your abs? The internet is just a mess of conflicting advice. But you know what? The science is actually surprisingly clear. So in this explainer, we're going to give you the real answer and a plan that finally puts you in the driver's seat. Okay, first things first. Before we can even start building our blueprint, we have to tear down a few myths. You know, the traditional bulk has gotten a seriously bad rap lately. There are some pretty wild claims being thrown around that scare people away from what is, hands down, the single most effective way to build muscle. So, let's clear the air. Now, here's one of those super scary sounding claims you see online: the idea that eating just a little bit more creates permanent new fat cells. I mean, that's enough to make anyone absolutely terrified of a calorie surplus. But is that the whole story? Is this scientific fact a real reason to fear the bulk, or is it being taken completely out of context?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting because the science completely flips the script. The fear is that bulking will wreck your insulin sensitivity, right? But studies actually show that a proper bulk and cut cycle can improve it in the long run. And that whole fat cell thing, well, creating new small fat cells, that's called hyperplasia, is actually your body's healthy way of storing energy. The real problem, the thing that leads to inflammation and all those metabolic issues, is when your existing fat cells just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So see, the enemy isn't bulking, it's just bulking the wrong way.
So, now that we know a smart bulk isn't the villain it's made out to be, let's get into the core science of how this all works. And really, it all comes down to energy. Whether you're trying to build muscle or lose fat, you're basically playing a game with calories in versus calories out. But how you play that game? Well, that makes all the difference between spinning your wheels for months and making some incredible progress. Think about this for a second. Building muscle is an incredibly expensive process for your body. This number, 845 calories, is roughly the energy it costs to build just 1 single pound of muscle. And that includes all the energy needed for protein synthesis and everything else. When you see that number, it becomes crystal clear why trying to build any significant amount of muscle in a calorie deficit is, for most of us, a losing battle. Your body just doesn't have the fuel to start construction. And this chart just illustrates the point perfectly. It's the law of diminishing returns. A study looked at bodybuilders and compared a moderate calorie surplus to a really large one. The group with the moderate surplus, they gained more muscle than fat. Awesome. But the large surplus group, sure, they gained a tiny bit more muscle, but they packed on nearly 3 times more fat in the process. The takeaway couldn't be clearer. A massive surplus doesn't mean massive muscle, it just means massive fat gain. More is definitely not better here. Okay, this brings us to one of the most important and honestly most overlooked concepts for fat loss: energy flux. It's not just that you're in a deficit that matters, it's how you get there. You've got 2 choices. You can either eat way less, which creates a low energy flux, or you can eat more and move more, creating a high energy flux. And that choice right there is the difference between a miserable diet you're going to quit and an efficient, effective cut. So let's look at these 2 paths side by side. The old school route, low energy flux, is just eat less. Simple, right? The problem is your body fights back hard. Your metabolism slows down to conserve energy, you subconsciously move less, and your hunger hormones go through the roof. The high energy flux path, though, that's the smarter way. You eat at or near your maintenance calories, and you create that deficit with activity. What's the result? You get to eat way more food, which keeps you sane and full, and your body doesn't slam the brakes on your metabolism. So why is high energy flux such a no-brainer? Well, it pretty much sidesteps all the classic problems with dieting. Your metabolism stays fired up, you're not starving, so you can actually stick to the plan. And because you're well-fed, you'll naturally have more energy to just move more during the day. You'll fidget, you'll take the stairs. That's what scientists call NEAT, and it makes a huge difference. It's just a smarter, more sustainable, and way less damaging way to get lean. All right, nutrition is only half the battle. Let's head over to the gym. Gaining muscle isn't about just destroying yourself for 2 hours every single day.
Just like with our nutrition, the science points to a smarter, more strategic approach that's going to maximize your results without wasting your time or crushing your ability to recover.
Now check this out. This chart shows the relationship between your training volume, so how many sets you do, and how much muscle you grow. As you can clearly see, the biggest bang for your buck happens in those first few sets. But after about 10 to 15 sets for a muscle group in one workout, you hit a point of seriously diminishing returns. Doing more doesn't just stop helping, it can actually start to hurt your recovery and your growth.
So, what's the simple, actionable takeaway from all that? It's this number right here, 10. For most people, most of the time, starting with about 10 hard sets per muscle group per week is a fantastic, evidence-based sweet spot. It's enough of a stimulus to trigger significant growth, but it's not so much that you can't recover from it. It's the perfect place to start. And what about how often you train? You know, the classic bro split versus hitting muscles multiple times a week. Well, here's the truth. When you actually look at studies where the total weekly volume is the same, the difference is pretty much non-existent. The most important thing is that total weekly volume. So whether you do 10 sets for chest all on Monday, or you do 5 sets on Monday and another 5 on Thursday, the result is going to be pretty much the same. So just pick the split that fits your schedule and that you actually enjoy enough to do week in and week out.
Okay, so we've busted the myths. We've covered the science of nutrition and training. Now it's time for the good part. It's time to put it all together. This is the simple, step-by-step blueprint you can start using, like today, to build more muscle and lose more fat. No more guesswork, just a clear plan of attack. For your Smart Bulk, it's a simple 4-step process. First, figure out your maintenance calories. Second, add a modest surplus. Remember, 200 to 500 calories is that sweet spot. Third, bump your protein up and then fill in the rest of those new calories with carbs, which are great for fueling your workouts. And finally, use the scale as your guide. You want to aim for a slow, steady gain of about a ½ pound to 1 pound per week. That's how you know most of it is quality muscle. And for the efficient cut, we're using that awesome high-energy flex model. Step 1, find your maintenance. Step 2, you eat at maintenance. That's right, no dramatic food cuts. Step 3 is where the magic happens. You create your 500-calorie deficit through activity. A little bit of cardio plus hitting 10,000 steps a day can easily get you there. And step 4, just keep that protein high to protect your muscle and enjoy eating a satisfying amount of food while you get leaner and leaner. And here's what that can look like in a real week. A simple, super effective 4-day split that hits every muscle group with plenty of volume and, just as importantly, allows for a ton of recovery. You've got your 2 full rest days, which are absolutely crucial for growth. This is a sustainable, smart structure that you can build on, and it ensures you're hitting that weekly volume target we talked about without having to live in the gym. So there you have it. The science is clear. The strategy makes sense. The step-by-step plan is right in front of you. The blueprint is simple, and we know it's effective. It completely removes all the guesswork and all the frustration. At this point, the knowledge is no longer the thing holding you back. The only thing standing between you and the body you want is consistent action. So the real question isn't what should I do anymore? It's, will you do it?